Again, thank you for having me. I put the PowerPoint in a PDF format. Uh, and oh, hold on, I'm getting a. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen in a minute, but I put the PDF format in the chat as well as I sent it to you guys, to Luba and to Jorge, so that you can share it with anybody at the congregation or anybody watching on Zoom if you want the notes. The reason why I'm saying this is because I have a lot of information in my PowerPoint, and sometimes people try to write down stuff and they miss the next point. So don't worry about it. You'll get everything that I'm talking about. So just pay attention and don't worry about taking notes. So let me see if I can share my screen right now. And right there should be the one. Tell me if you see it. Can somebody tell me?
There, yes, we do.
Okay,
Yes,
so
we see it.
you see the big blue screen with the title, right?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So I was thinking about what to speak on, and the situation in Israel right now is such, and that really since October 7, it has. I think we've turned another corner, and I specialize in the study and teaching of anti-Semitism globally and historically and contemporary, and I thought that I wanted to bring something to you that would be both a challenge and an encouragement. And so the title is, "It was the most natural thing to do." What's the most natural thing to do? Well, the subtitle, if you could flip it, it could be the title and vice versa, "Doing What's Right in an Evil World." I think we'd all agree that right now the world is showing its ugly face, and we're seeing things happening all over in the US and Canada and Europe and the Middle East, especially against our people, the Jewish people, that it's very, very scary, especially to those who do not have a saving knowledge of Yeshua or Messiah. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to show you two sides of a coin. I'm going to show you what not to do in an evil world. It's going to be very brief. I don't want to spend too much time on that. And then I'm going to show you some examples of some incredible people that did the right thing. And I want to see how they compare to us believers, and what it should encourage us to do to make a difference. So let me make sure I'm on the right screen. Okay, so we have here in my introduction, I want to tell you two stories. The first one is, to some of you maybe known, the voyage of the St. Louis ship that left Germany, Hamburg, in 1939, and 2 weeks later it arrived in Cuba when the passengers had acquired visas to get safe passage into Cuba to leave Europe that was in the midst of a war and to escape the horrors of the Nazis. By the time they got to Cuba, their papers had been denied, rescinded, and they couldn't use them, so they could not land in Cuba. They went all the way up to the coast of Florida, could not either. They even tried to Canada, could not either. So ended up having to. They were forced to return to Europe with all the passengers that ended up. There's about 937 passengers. Ended up being taken by Great Britain, Netherlands, Belgium, and France, and almost a third of the original passengers died in the Holocaust, and that was unnecessary. They could have been taken as refugees. It was denied, and as a result, about a third of them died in the Holocaust. The next story, and that's an example of poor judgment, that cost a life of unnecessarily of people. Then the next one is, and I don't know if any of you know the story of the beautiful horses known as the Lipizzaner horses. It's a 450-year tradition. The Lipizzaner horses, Spanish riding school of Vienna. They're incredibly talented, gifted horses. You can teach them a lot of things. And during the war, they were at risk of becoming food for the soldiers. So in 1944, so what happened is that a rescue team was sent by General Patton, led by General Patton, was sent to save them because General Patton was a horseman. He loved horses. He rode horses all the time. Here's a picture of him right there. What happened is that they saved the horses, and not one got killed, which was a good thing. But in perspective of all that, all throughout 1944, various Jewish organizations begged the USA to bomb the death camps or at least the railroads leading to them. Nothing happened. The response that was given when the people asked for the bombing, the U.S. War Department responded that this would, and I quote, constitute a diversion of considerable air support essential to the success of our forces not engaged in decisive operations elsewhere. And the reason why I'm saying this is because they said we cannot bomb the camps because it's going to waste some of our resources, yet they wasted some of the resources to save the horses. So to the Jewish community, it's sending a message that horses are more important than Jewish people. And that was definitely, again, another bad decision. There's plenty of stories like this, but what I want to concentrate on for the rest of our time is the other side of the coin. What can be done when we make the right decisions? The other side of the coin. Here's a hero of mine. I do not know his name. I have no idea who he is, but here is a German man in a crowd in 1936 refusing to do the Nazi salute. That is, to me, is if you want an illustration for the word chutzpah, I think you got it right there. That's chutzpah. He's my hero. Another interesting picture I found in my research is this picture of a Hanukkah. We're coming on to Hanukkah in the next few days. Picture of a Hanukkah on a windowsill in 1932 in Germany, and there was a little card next to it that said Hanukkah 5692, death to Judah, so the flag says. You see the German flag in the back, and Judah will live forever, so the light answers. And I would say, Judah will live forever, so Yeshua confirms through his word. We have, for instance, in Jeremiah 31, 35 to 37, the promise from God that he will never forsake or destroy Israel, no matter what, even in a bleak moment like what we're seeing right now in the Middle East. So those are very, very brave people. And sometimes when you're brave, you have to go against the flow. Those who hid Anne Frank were breaking the law. Those who killed her were following it. And I'm going to mention a couple of things regarding that this morning that's probably going to challenge you and maybe even ruffle some feathers. But I think it's important that we go there at the time we live in. So I want to talk to you about some of the famous heroes, and then again we'll look at the end of how we can compare to what they did and in what way. So some of those famous heroes: Corrie ten Boom, Oskar Schindler, Raoul Wallenberg, who's a Swedish diplomat who saved a lot of Jewish lives. They all did their part in saving Jews during the Holocaust. Now, something that always gets to me when I look at the numbers, we talk about the 6 million, the 6 million, the 6 million. What does that mean? Well, here's something in perspective. If we held a moment of silence for every victim of the Holocaust, we would be silent for 11 and a half years. That puts perspective right there. That is a very long time. So let me introduce you to some incredible people that should be our examples to do something different for the kingdom in the world we live in right now. I'm going to take you back to the war, and then I'm going to bring us back to today. And I hope it will be an encouragement, a model, and an incentive. Those are somewhat known if you do a little research, but to most people, they're unknown. And they all have some pretty difficult names to say. So every time I look at their name, I always so I hope I don't butcher the names. This one is Ho Feng Chan, born in China was appointed consul general in Vienna, Austria in 1937, started to issue visas to Jewish people, and he disobeyed his superiors to do so. He issued thousands of visas to Jewish people, especially after Kristallnacht. Kristallnacht was the night of November 9, 10, 1938, where in Berlin, many synagogues and Jewish storefronts were destroyed. Stars of David were painted on the storefronts to identify where the Jews were. And it was about 100 Jewish people died. You look at it, it's not that many. It's too many, but it's not that many. But a lot of destruction of property. But it was also the date that is recognized as the starting point of the Holocaust. And something I want to bring up to you, which is not in the PowerPoint, is that I returned from France about a month ago for a board meeting. And in France at that time, it was in the midst of the first few weeks of the war, we were witnessing Stars of David being stenciled, painted in blue on the front of buildings in Paris and in the suburb of Paris to identify the Jewish homes, to identify where the Jews are. Tell me, if this is not Kristallnacht 2.0, I don't know what is. The Jews are very scared right now, and rightfully so. So Ho-Feng Shan, in December 1938, he through his work, 7,000 Jews crossed the border towards Italy and Switzerland, and most of them had Chinese visa. So the irony of it is that you have a Jewish family crossing to Switzerland or Italy with a Chinese visa. It makes no sense at all. But back then, it was a legal way to push some Jewish people through to areas where it was safe to go. So that's what Ho-Feng Shan did. And, here's one of his quotes: "It was just natural to feel compassion for those persecuted and help them. It was what had to be done." Next person is Dr. Hans Georg Kallmeyer. He was a lawyer in Germany, and he was stationed in the Netherlands during World War II. He was asked to help with the registration of Jews under a new decree that was going to get them put in ghettos, put on trains, sent to the camps, sent to their death. So he was asked to help register those Jewish people by his superiors. He saw an opportunity, albeit very risky, to help Jews. So a lot of Jewish people came to his office, and they had fake papers, and he knew they were fake papers, but he approved them, and this allowed for many Jewish people, about 4,000 of them, 4 times the amount that Schindler helped. And I'm not comparing him to Schindler like he's better or worse. Everybody who saved Jews' lives during the war, even if it's one life, it made a difference. So he did a great deed. There was a book written about him on your screen. You see it. And after the war, he, like most of these heroes, very rarely spoke of his deeds. They didn't want to talk about that dark time of history. They just did what they could to make a difference. Władysław Bartoszewski participated in the defense of Warsaw and was sent to Auschwitz. Not Jewish. He was sent to Auschwitz. He escaped. He got out of Auschwitz. He joined the Polish underground in 1949 after his release, and he became the leader of a group called Zagota, the Council for Aid of Jews in Poland. He met a Catholic priest, and I really liked this conversation they had when he came out, and he was really troubled about what was happening against the Jews. And so, here's some of their dialogue. How could all this be God's will? And in yellow is the response from the priest. Don't think about why God allows evil. Think about why God saved you. It was for a reason, wasn't it? It was for a purpose. Bear witness to the truth. You saw how people are suffering. Help them. Help who? Help those who need it. But who needs it? Those who are suffering the most. But I'm a student, Father. I have no resources with which I can do anything great. So do something small. But don't turn your face away. People in the ghetto are suffering. Help them. And this is really, at the end of the day, you can do something big, do something small, but do something. Like the motto says it on T-shirts, just do it. Do something, even if it's small. Zygota was responsible to help 40 to 50,000 Jewish people who benefited from that group, Zygota, that Władysław Bartoszewski was part of. And he also ended up fighting in the uprising, in the Warsaw Ghetto uprising. So a couple more people I want to talk about that I think are important. Eduardo Propel de Callejon, I hope I say it right because I don't speak Spanish, but I hope it's right. He was the secretary of the Spanish embassy in Paris under the Nazi occupation. He issued more than 30,000 transit visas for Jews to move to Spain and to Portugal. And when he was discovered, what he was doing, he was sent away to Morocco, North Africa, so he could not continue. He could have killed. They could have killed him, but they just kind of exiled him, so he could not continue to do what he was doing to help the Jews. What about this one? I love this one. Vissel and Fatima Viseli. They were a Muslim family living in a small Albanian village. That's them right there after the war. They took in the Mendel family, hid them, fed them, protected them through the war. They dressed them as Muslims, a Jewish family dressed as Muslim, so they could blend in the village where they were staying. And I find this interesting. I compared a quote from two holy books. What they're considered holy, but one is the Quran, which of course is not inspired, but it's interesting quote you'll see. The other one is the Talmud, which also is not inspired, but has a lot of wisdom from our Jewish fathers. And look at this. Quran, whoever saves one life saves all of mankind. Talmud, anyone who saves a life is as if he saved an entire world. And really, you look at that philosophy found in those words, and it also connects to the words of Yeshua that we find in the Bible. Before we look at us and how, before we look at what these people had in common, what we can learn from them and apply to today to make a difference in this crazy world that we live in, I want to show you one more family. Two simple farmers in the zone libre, or the free zone of southwest France. They took in 3 Jewish kids, a girl and their 2 cousins, for the last 2.5 years of the war. They had no connections, no influence, no money, no power. They just took the kids and kept them on their farm. I would not be talking to you today without their bravery and compassion, because they saved my mother during the war. And they became righteous among the nations posthumously after their death in 2013. So I wouldn't be speaking to you if it was not for them. All these people, including that very obscure family that nobody knows, except that to me they're special, of course, they all were unknown heroes from different countries in the world. And what I want to look at for a moment is, what did they have in common? Well, they, first of all, if you look at, if you compare them to what you can find in the Bible, they acted as good Samaritans. Luke 10, 29, 37. But wishing to justify himself, he said to Yeshua, "And who is my neighbor?" Yeshua replied and said, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among robbers, and they stripped him and beat him and went away, leaving him half dead. And by chance, a priest was going down on that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. Likewise, a Levite also, when he came to the place, saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan who was on a journey came upon him. And when he saw him, he felt compassion and came to him and bandaged up his wounds, pouring oil and wine on them. And he put him on his own beast and brought him to an inn and took care of him. On the next day, he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper and said, "Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, when I return, I will repay. I will repay you." Which of these 3 do you think proved to be a neighbor to the man who fell to the robber's hands? Into the robber's hands? And he said, "The one who showed mercy toward him." Then Yeshua said to him, "Go and do the same." So all these people during the war, as we try to model what they did, they were good Samaritans. And that's something we need to keep in the back of our mind. We need to always be willing and prepared and equipped and prepared to be good Samaritans to our neighbors, our co-workers, our friends. And friends, this is especially close to my heart because I see right now what's happening to our people. And I think Christians in general are going to have a great opportunity to reach out to their Jewish friends and embrace them and rescue them and shelter them even in their homes. Things that were not done enough during the Second World War. Now, again, another thing that these people all did that they have in common, and it's nothing to be proud of, but it's a reality. They were breaking the law. I repeat what I told you at the beginning. Those who hit Anne Frank were breaking the law. Those who killed her were following it. They also knew the risk they were taking. And that's something that we need to remember if we come to a place where we need to help people. Are we willing to take risks? Look at Esther 4:15-16. Then Esther told them to reply to Mordecai, go assemble all the Jews who are found in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my maidens also will fast in the same way, and thus I will go in to the king, which is not according to the law. And if I perish, I perish. She was willing to die for the cause. And on the next slide, I'm going to show you. Now, I do not want, this is not an invitation, this is not an encouragement to do this, but if you and I come to a place when we have to make a decision that is going to be against the law. Again, I am not promoting breaking the law, but we might come to a place. I'm pre-trib, pre-mill. I believe the next event, which is signless, doesn't have any sign before it, is the rapture. But before that, there's no guarantee, and actually we're seeing it right now, that the world is not going to get worse. It's happening right now. Things are getting crazy in Canada, in the US. And so we know that we have to prepare for worse times, even though before the rapture, before the tribulation. And if we get to a place when we have to make a decision, I want to talk for a minute about civil disobedience. Again, don't read this or don't hear this as me inviting you or promoting the act of civil disobedience. I'm just saying, if we get to this, what do we need to know about it? Well, I think there are 4 important things. If we get to make a decision that has to be seen as civil disobedience, 4 things need to be in place. Number 1, there must be a crystal clear conflict between the laws of man and the laws of God. A conflict, not a difference of opinion or disagreement, a clear conflict between what man wants and what God wants us to do. I'll give you an example. Modern days, today, if somebody was to knock on your door and your wife is pregnant, and they would say in the middle of the night, they open your door and they say, we need to have your wife come with us to the hospital. We'll take care of everything. We'll pay for it, but we need to perform an abortion. That to me is a conflict between the laws of men and the laws of God. What would you do in a case like this? So that's a drastic, example, but that's to give you an idea. Number 2, there must be an exhaustion of all creative legal remedies. Civil disobedience must always be the last resort for believers. Try everything else. That's legal. Everything you can think of before you commit civil disobedience. And number 3, there must be a willingness to pay the consequences. Esther was prepared for the cause to help Jewish people. She was prepared to die. Number 4, there must be a maintaining of respect for civil authorities. The perfect example of that is Daniel and his 3 friends. I don't have the verses there, but every time you read about Daniel and his 3 friends in conflict with Nebuchadnezzar, they always are very respectful. They always say, "Oh, King, live long, but we're not going to do what you ask us to do." There is a disagreement, but it's a respectful disagreement. There's no need to be rude and obnoxious. Those 4 things need to be in place. Keep that in mind, because it requires quite a bit before one is to commit civil disobedience. And again, I will repeat it. This is not an invitation or a promotion or me pushing you to do it. But in case you get to that place, Remember this. Number 4, these heroes, they were creative with what was at their disposal. Joshua 2, 4 through 7, the story of Rahab. But the woman had taken the 2 men and hidden them. And she said, yes, the men came to me, but I did not know where they were from. It came about when it was time to shut the gate at dark that the men went out. I do not know where the men went. Pursue them quickly, for you will overtake them. But she had brought them up to the roof and hidden them in the stalks of flax, which she had laid in order on the roof. So the men pursued them on the road to the Jordan, to the fords. And as soon as those were pursuing them had gone out, they shut the gate. So these people were very creative in whatever they had at their disposal. In difficult times, when you have to come to the rescue of people and do something right, you have to think creatively. These people never worried for a second about how many people they helped. You look at all the people I mentioned in previous examples, it's anywhere from 50,000 to 3 people. And some people even saved 1 person. And that's perfectly fine. Again, nothing small enough. Do something. So the numbers are not that important. So these heroes had those 5 things in common. Now, what I want to do is one step further. What do we have in common with these rescuers? Well, all those things really we can apply to us. We can act as good Samaritans. We might be found breaking the law to save people. We have to understand that we would risk something. We also have to understand, we have to prepare to be creative with what is at our disposal, and not worry about 1, 2, 10,000. Just do something for somebody that will make a difference. So we can do all this, but friends, we have so much more that we can do, because when you think about it, what do we have above and beyond these rescuers? Now, I don't know these people well enough that I can tell you they were believers. I'm assuming they were not, because from what I've read in my research, they were just people of goodwill, which is a good start. But we have so much more. So let me give you some examples of what we have. We understand God's promises. I mean, we take the Bible seriously. We understand God's promises to bless those who bless the Jews, Genesis 12:3, to curse those who curse the Jews, the same verse, to never forsake Israel. I already quoted that, Jeremiah 31:35-37. God is also, he's going to go after the enemies of Israel. In Zechariah 12:3, it says the whole world is going to turn against Israel, against Jerusalem, which is the same. And in 12:9, it says that God is going to catch up with everybody who goes after Israel. God also watches over Israel 24/7. He never slumbers nor sleeps. Psalm 121:4. He also God never changes. Numbers 23:19, Malachi 3:6. We know that we have the promise to have Yeshua return because of what? Because of the Jewish people calling on him. Zechariah 12:10, when it says Baruch haba b'Shem Adonai. And by the way, this is exactly why Satan is pushing anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism, as you see it right now over the world, everywhere, is demonic. It's satanic. I mean, I think that it's clearer now than ever that this is a demonic attack on the Jews, to get rid of all the Jews so they could not call on Yeshua, and Yeshua cannot return. The second coming is connected to all the Jewish people that are saved, rescued at the end of the tribulation, calling upon Yeshua and say, blessed is you, comes in the name of the Lord. So all these are promises that we have from God's word. We know this is true. This is above and beyond what these heroes of yesteryear did for the Jewish people. We also understand God's power. The gospel is the power of God, yes, to the Jew first and also to the Greek. But I concentrate on the fact that the gospel is the power of God. It's a living word. The word of the Bible. This is when you read your Bible every day. It's you get the living word. It never gets old. You always get something new from it. And I can tell you, I've been reading my Bible and doing a daily devotion for I think 16 years now, and I find verses. I swear, I look in the morning and I go like, Lord, when did you put this one in? It's like I never saw it before. And so read your Bible, the living word. So the gospel is the power of God. The word of the cross is the power of God. 1 Corinthians 1:18. The whole universe is God's. It belongs to God. He created it from scratch. That's the power of God. His greatness is unsearchable. Psalm 145:3. Nothing is too hard for him. Jeremiah 32:27. We have all this. We know all this being the truth. This should be encouraging and empowering to us, because we know God's promises, and we know God is not changing his mind. He's not changing, because God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So all the promises he made, he's going to keep. We know his power, and we also know, we understand God's provision. We are valuable to God. Luke 12:24. God will meet our needs, not necessarily our wants, but our needs. Now, if you're in the center of God's will, then your wants and your needs will match up. But you know for sure from Philippians 4:19 that God is going to meet our needs. God provides for those who seek him. Psalm 34:10. And there are no limits to God's provision. Luke 9:1-17. So you see what is not to be done. The couple of examples of the really bad choices that ended up in Jewish lives lost. Then I showed you some of those examples, and there's a lot more of those righteous Gentiles who helped Jewish people. And the reason why I thought it was important to share this with you, my friends, is because we are at that crossroads again. We are, since October 7th, what happened in October 7th, and anti-Semitism is out of the box. It will not end until Yeshua returns, but we still have to fight it. And I believe beyond the shadow of a doubt that right now is an incredible opportunity for believers to present the gospel to Jewish people like we've never had a chance before, to present the gospel to Jewish people in the context of humanitarian effort. Now, there are a lot of organizations that people give money to that I would not recommend, that do only humanitarian effort. And that is good up to a point. But for people like us who believe in the words of the Bible, who believe in the importance of the gospel, we cannot just do humanitarian efforts. Because it was once said that if you just do humanitarian effort, it's the same as sending a Jewish person to hell on a full stomach. Think about it. It's not doing them any favor. So humanitarian effort, because of the gospel and with the gospel, is the only way to go. And I believe right now we are at a place where we can reach out to our Jewish friends, Jewish coworkers, Jewish neighbors, and say, if you're in trouble, you can come to my house. You can stay with us. I'll rescue you. I'll shelter you. I'll hide you. I'll feed you. I'll clothe you. It's very much parallel to the passage in Matthew 25:31-46, the goats and the sheep, that will take place, I believe, in the tribulation, where Gentiles who would be left behind will get saved and then understand the importance of the Jewish people in God's program, and they will want to do anything they can to help the Jewish people. And they, at the end of the tribulation, when Yeshua returns, he looks at those Gentiles, they're the sheep, and he says, because if you did all this, you did all these to, you fed them, you gave them a drink, you visited them in prison, you rescued them, it's as if you did it to me. And then to those who didn't, it's as if they didn't do it to Yeshua. And those who didn't go straight to the lake of fire, and those who did go straight to enter into the millennial kingdom. That is going to happen in tribulation. But I don't see any reason why we could not fast forward or actually bring it to today and say, use this principle today. Let's look at our Jewish friends. Let's reach out. There's so many things we can do. Call a synagogue, call a Jewish community center, have coffee with with a rabbi, with a Jewish leader, or let them know that there are Christians, there are believers who actually care and would risk their lives to help a Jewish person in trouble. This is where we are, my friends. This is not going away. It's going to continue. It might go up and down, ebb and flow in intensity and gravity. But anti-Semitism we've seen in the last 2 months is completely out of the box. It's not going back. People have been bolder than ever to express their hatred of the Jewish people, which is very irrational and very demonic. And we are at a place where we can make a difference. So I beg you, I want to encourage you, I want to ask you to pray about this and prepare to really to open your homes to Jewish people, because it's going to be needed, and we have a chance to somehow redeem the Christians, quote unquote, of 80 years ago who did not necessarily do the right thing. And final word here, they were bystanders. We don't want to be bystanders. We want to do something right. A bystander only facilitates the work of a perpetrator. So we do not want to be on the side of the bystanders. We want to be on the side of the heroes. Not to be a hero, but just to help. Because those who help the Jewish people, if you help the Jewish people, you're on God's side. And that's where you want to be. You want to be on God's side. So that's what I have for all of us today. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I gonna just close with a quick word of prayer, and then I'll pass it back to Jorge. Lord, thank you for giving me a chance to share what is on my heart, and the privilege of being able to share, and the honor of being invited to the congregation to share on Shabbat. And Lord, may you stir our hearts in such a way that we would prepare to do incredible, crazy things that need to be done to help our Jewish friends, and to, in the process of all that, show the love of Messiah and make him jealous of what we have. In Yeshua's name, amen.